Hello viewers, and welcome back to Raven Reports, where we dive into the darkest corners of the digital age. Tonight's story is one that shook the online world to its core. A rising TikTok star, adored by millions, subjected to a brutal assault that left fans worldwide in shock and disbelief. I'm your host, and this is TikTok star exposed in a brutal assault, leaving millions of fans heartbroken. Before we begin, remember to like this video and subscribe to Raven Reports for more stories that explore the shadows lurking behind our screens. Now, let's delve into this harrowing tale. 22-year-old Eliza Chen, known to her 17 million followers as Lizalites, was the embodiment of TikTok success. Her rise to fame had been meteoric. In just 18 months, she had gone from posting dance videos from her college dorm room to signing major brand deals worth millions. Her signature neon-colored hair, changing monthly to the delight of her fans, and her infectious laugh made her instantly recognizable. Eliza's content ranged from choreographed dances to comedy skits and day-in-my-life vlogs that gave her followers glimpses into what seemed like a perfect existence. Behind the ring lights and carefully edited clips, Eliza was a communications major at Pacific West University in San Diego. Friends described her as hardworking, ambitious, and surprisingly grounded despite her online fame. She was always the first to arrive at group projects and the last to leave, said one classmate who wished to remain anonymous. Fame didn't change her core values, but it definitely changed her life, and change her life it did. By early last year, Eliza had moved out of her shared college apartment into a sleek high-rise with panoramic views of the city, a fact she was careful not to flaunt too obviously on her social media. She had hired a small team, a part-time security guard, a content manager, and an assistant who helped coordinate her increasingly busy schedule of brand meetings, content creation days, and the occasional public appearance. What made Eliza stand out in the crowded TikTok landscape wasn't just her dancing skills or her striking looks, it was her authenticity. In an ecosystem often criticized for promoting unrealistic standards, Eliza occasionally showed her struggles. She talked openly about her parents' initial disapproval of her career choice, her battle with anxiety, and the pressure of maintaining her online persona. These glimpses of vulnerability only made her fans love her more. She felt like a friend, explained social media analyst Morgan Rivera. The parasocial relationship her followers developed with her was particularly strong because she masterfully balanced aspiration with relatability. That's the sweet spot for influencer success. But it also creates a false sense of intimacy that can sometimes lead to dangerous situations. Rivera's words would prove prophetic. As Eliza's star rose, so did the intensity of her fan interactions. What started as occasional marriage proposals in her comment section evolved into more concerning behavior. Fans began showing up at locations she had featured in her videos. Some sent elaborate gifts to her management company's address. One particularly dedicated follower reportedly got the same tattoo as Eliza, a small crescent moon behind her ear, and posted it with the caption, "Twinning with my future bestie." It was around this time that Eliza began noticing something else, a username that appeared in her comments with unsettling regularity, "Your true fan." The comments themselves seemed innocuous at first. "Your dance moves are getting better every day," or "That outfit looks familiar. Didn't you wear something similar last month?" But they gradually became more specific, more personal. "I saw you at Cloudbreak Coffee yesterday. Sorry I didn't say hi. You seemed stressed." Or, "Your apartment view looks different from this angle. Did you move the furniture?" Like many content creators, Eliza was accustomed to dealing with obsessive fans. She had been coached by her management to ignore rather than engage, to block rather than confront. But Your True Fan was different. They never directly threatened her, never crossed the line into explicit harassment that would warrant platform intervention. Instead, they existed in that gray area of discomfort, present enough to be noticed, careful enough to avoid consequences. In late October, Eliza mentioned the account to her security guard, Marcus Delgado, a former police officer who had transitioned to private security work after an injury. "I showed him the comments and he seemed concerned but not alarmed," Eliza later told friends. "He advised me to increase privacy settings on my accounts and to be more careful about sharing real-time locations." Eliza followed his advice. She began posting content hours or days after recording it. She stopped tagging her exact locations until she had left them. She was more selective about which parts of her apartment appeared in videos. For a while, it seemed to work. The comments from Mark, your true fan, became less specific, more general. Eliza focused on her upcoming projects, a collaboration with a major athletic wear brand and talks of a potential reality show. What Eliza didn't know was that your true fan had already gathered enough information about her life to render her new precautions almost meaningless. Through careful analysis of her videos, the angle of sunlight through her windows, reflections in mirrors, background noise and outdoor shoots, they had pieced together a surprisingly accurate picture of her daily routines. Social media experts call this digital stalking by triangulation, and it's becoming increasingly common as people share more of their lives online. The problem is that most influencers don't realize how much information they're inadvertently revealing, explained cybersecurity expert Dr. Alan Patel. A glimpse of a street sign in the background, a reflection in sunglasses, ambient sounds, these can all be pieced together by someone determined enough. And once they have that information, the digital boundary between creator and audience dissolves in potentially dangerous ways. For Eliza, the dissolution of that boundary came on a rainy Tuesday evening in November. She had spent the day filming content in her apartment and was expecting a food delivery around 8 p.m. When her doorbell rang, she checked the building's security app on her phone, which showed a figure in a delivery uniform holding a bag. She buzzed them in without a second thought. 3 minutes later, there was a knock at her door. Eliza opened it, phone in hand, already reaching for her wallet with the other. What happened next would change her life forever. The delivery person, wearing a cap pulled low and a surgical mask that wasn't uncommon in the post-pandemic era, pushed past her into the apartment. Before Eliza could react, they slammed the door shut and turned to face her. Finally, a voice said, "Just the two of us." Eliza would later recall that in that moment, her mind seemed to split in two. One part was screaming in terror, recognizing the immediate danger. The other part, strangely detached, was thinking about content, about how she had inadvertently taught millions of people to open their doors without verifying identities, about how she had just demonstrated the exact scenario her parents had warned her about when she moved to the city. "I know you've been avoiding me," the intruder said, removing the mask to reveal a face Eliza didn't recognize. "But that's okay. I understand the pressure you're under, the need to maintain appearances." Eliza's training kicked in. Not self-defense training, which she had never taken, but the crisis management training her team had insisted upon when she reached 10 million followers. Keep them talking. Look for exits. Find a weapon if possible. Call for help if you can do so safely. "Who are you?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady while her hand slowly moved the phone behind her back, desperately trying to remember if she had set up the emergency SOS feature that would silently call 911. "I'm your true fan, of course," they said, seeming genuinely surprised that she didn't immediately recognize them. "But my real name is Jordan. I've been watching you for so long, Eliza. Not just your videos. Anyone can do that. I've been understanding you. Seeing the real you behind the persona." Eliza's mind raced. The apartment door was now behind Jordan. The balcony was to her right, but 20 floors up, it offered no escape. Her bedroom was behind her. She could perhaps lock herself in, but would the flimsy interior door hold? And what about her roommate Mia, who was due home any minute? "What do you want?" Eliza asked, trying to buy time. Her thumb found the power button on her phone and pressed it 5 times in quick succession. The emergency signal. Now she just needed to stall. Jordan smiled, and it was the normality of the expression that terrified Eliza most. "I want what your other fans want, but I'm willing to work for it. Real connection. Recognition. I've invested so much in you, Eliza. Thousands of hours studying your content, learning your patterns, understanding your needs. I deserve more than just another heart emoji or generic 'love you guys' comment." As Jordan spoke, they moved further into the apartment, examining the familiar setting as if confirming it matched their mental image. "Your plant is dying," they noted, pointing to a fiddle leaf fig in the corner. "You forget to water it when you're stressed. You've been stressed a lot lately, haven't you? The collab with FitLife isn't going well. I can tell from your eyes in the recent videos." The casual accuracy of the observation sent a chill through Eliza. The FitLife athletic wear collaboration had indeed hit some snags, but she hadn't mentioned that publicly. She had, however, vented about it to her mother during a video call, a call she had taken in this very room, perhaps inadvertently revealing more in her expressions than she realized. "Jordan," Eliza said, trying to keep her voice calm, "I appreciate your support, I really do, but you're scaring me right now. You can't just come into someone's home like this." Jordan's expression hardened. Scaring you? I've done nothing but support you. Do you know how many hate comments I've reported and gotten removed from your page? How many times I've defended you against trolls? I'm the one person who truly sees you, Eliza. Not the character you play online, but the real you. Eliza heard the elevator ding in the hallway outside her apartment. Mia? Or perhaps a neighbor? Either way, it represented a potential interruption, potential help. Jordan heard it too, their head turning slightly toward the door. Let's continue this conversation somewhere more private, Jordan said, taking a step toward Eliza. I have a place where we can talk without interruptions. You'll love it. I've decorated it with all your favorite things. The implication that Jordan had prepared a location specifically for her sent a wave of terror through Eliza unlike anything she had experienced before. This wasn't a random crime of opportunity. This was methodical, planned, the culmination of a long obsession. And in that moment, Eliza realized that maintaining her carefully cultivated image, polite, accommodating, never wanting to offend, might cost her everything. No, she said, her voice stronger now. I'm not going anywhere with you. You need to leave. Now. Jordan's expression flickered between hurt and anger. After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat your true fan? Your most dedicated supporter? Eliza heard keys jingling outside her door. Mia was home. Relief flooded through her, immediately followed by fear. Not for herself now, but for her roommate, who had no idea what she was walking into. What happened next occurred in a chaotic blur. The door opened, and Mia stepped in, eyes on her phone, not immediately registering the scene before her. Jordan, startled by the interruption, lunged toward Eliza. Eliza screamed, the sound finally breaking Mia's absorption with her device. Mia, a former high school athlete with quick reflexes, assessed the situation in a split second and threw her heavy backpack directly at Jordan's head. The impact wasn't enough to incapacitate Jordan, but it created crucial seconds of confusion. Eliza darted past, grabbing Mia's arm and pulling her toward the door. But Jordan recovered quickly, reaching out and catching Eliza by her hair, her signature neon blue locks that week, and yanking her backward with surprising strength. Eliza fell hard, her head striking the corner of the coffee table. Pain exploded through her skull, and her vision swam. She was dimly aware of Mia screaming, of Jordan standing over her, of warm wetness spreading beneath her head. "Look what you made me do," Jordan said, voice strangely calm despite the escalating situation. "This isn't how our story was supposed to go, Eliza." What saved Eliza that night was a combination of factors. Mia's quick thinking in running into the hallway and pulling the fire alarm, the building's security guard who was already on his way up due to the silent alarm from Eliza's phone, and the neighbor across the hall, an off-duty paramedic who heard the commotion and rushed to provide immediate medical attention once Jordan had been subdued. Police would later describe the incident as a textbook case of parasocial relationship gone wrong. Jordan Lewis, 27, had no prior criminal record, but a history of intense fixations on public figures. In their apartment, investigators found what they described as a shrine to Eliza. Printed screenshots of every post she'd ever made, maps marking locations she frequented, and even recreations of outfits she had worn in popular videos. Most disturbing was the journal detailing what Jordan called "our future together," a meticulous plan that began with their first meeting at Eliza's apartment and ended with them running a joint account from an unspecified location where they would be free from the judgment of those who don't understand our connection. For Eliza, the physical recovery was just the beginning. The assault left her with a severe concussion, 20 stitches at the back of her head, hidden beneath her signature colorful hair in subsequent appearances, and a deep psychological trauma that would take months of therapy to even begin addressing. The hardest part wasn't the physical pain. She would later tell a small circle of trusted friends. It was the realization that my entire career, everything I had built, had inadvertently created the conditions for this to happen. Every time I shared a piece of my life, I was unknowingly giving ammunition to someone who wanted to possess me. The TikTok community rallied around Eliza in the aftermath. "We Stand with Liza" trended worldwide for days. Fellow creators shared resources on digital safety and privacy. Brands she had partnered with sent public messages of support and private assurances that her contracts remained secure. But the internet's attention span is notoriously short. Within weeks, the hashtag faded. New trends emerged. Other dramas captured the collective consciousness. and Eliza was left to navigate her new reality, one in which the boundary between her digital persona and her physical safety had been violently breached. For 3 months, Eliza's accounts remained silent. No posts, no updates, not even the obligatory "taking some time for myself" message that typically precedes a social media hiatus. Her management released only one statement, asking for privacy during her recovery and thanking fans for their support. Behind the scenes, Eliza was rebuilding her life from the ground up. She moved to a new apartment in a secure building with no public address. She changed her phone number, email addresses, and even her legal name for non-public purposes. She installed advanced security systems and hired a full-time security consultant. She underwent PTSD therapy and took self-defense classes. And she thought deeply about her future. Could she return to a career that now felt inextricably linked to the most traumatic experience of her life? Could she continue creating content knowing that each post, each video, each seemingly innocent share could potentially feed another obsession? Was any amount of fame or fortune worth living in perpetual fear? The answer came to her not in a moment of clarity, but through a gradual process of reclamation. "They took my sense of safety," she told her therapist during one particularly breakthrough session. "I don't want them to take my voice too." 4 months after the assault, a new video appeared on Eliza's TikTok account. It showed her sitting in an unidentifiable room, her signature colorful hair now a natural brown. The lighting was professional but subdued. There were no filters, no enhancements, none of the usual trappings of influencer content. "Hi," she began, her voice steady but carrying new weight. "It's been a while. I've missed you all. Before I talk about where I've been, I want to talk about where we're going. All of us who exist in this digital space we've created together." What followed was a 15-minute video that would be viewed over 50 million times in the first week alone. Eliza detailed her experience, not with graphic specificity, but with enough honesty to convey the gravity of what had occurred. She talked about the false sense of intimacy that social media creates, the dangers of parasocial relationships, and the responsibility that both creators and platforms have to address these issues. "I'm not here to blame anyone," she said toward the end of the video. "Not the platforms, not other creators, not even the majority of fans who engage respectfully. But I am here to start a conversation about what healthy engagement looks like in this new landscape we're all navigating together." The video ended with an announcement. Eliza would be returning to content creation, but with a different focus. Her new channel, Digital Boundaries, would combine her natural charisma with educational content about online safety, privacy protection, and healthy creator-audience relationships. She would still dance occasionally. "It brings me joy, and I won't let that be taken from me." But her primary mission had evolved. The response was overwhelming. Other major creators shared her video with endorsements. Educational institutions reached out about partnerships. A senator's office contacted her about testifying for upcoming legislation on digital stalking protections. Eliza had transformed her trauma into purpose, her platform into a movement. Of course, not all responses were positive. A vocal minority accused her of overreacting, of exploiting her experience for attention, or of betraying her original content focus. Some conspiracy theorists even suggested the entire incident had been staged as a publicity stunt, a claim that would be repeated so often that Eliza's legal team eventually had to issue cease and desist letters to several prominent accounts. But for every negative comment, there were thousands of messages of support, particularly from other creators who had experienced similar, if less violent, boundary violations. Many shared their own stories publicly for the first time, creating a domino effect of transparency about the darker side of digital fame. As for Jordan Lewis, the legal process moved forward. Charged with breaking and entering, assault, stalking, and attempted kidnapping, they faced significant prison time. Eliza made the difficult decision to participate in the prosecution, despite knowing it would mean reliving her trauma through testimony and facing her attacker in court. "I need to see this through," she told her therapist. "Not just for my closure, but for everyone who might be protected if we establish stronger legal precedents around digital stalking." The prosecution faced unique challenges. Jordan's defense attorney, Martin Reeves, was known for taking on high-profile cases with novel legal questions. His defense strategy centered on what he called the invitation paradox of social media. "My client was responding to what they perceived as direct and personal communication," Reeves argued in his opening statement. When Ms. Chen looked into the camera and said, "I love you guys," or "You're the best fans in the world," my client believed she was speaking directly to them. When she shared intimate details of her life, my client interpreted this as an invitation to reciprocal intimacy. The argument outraged victims' rights advocates, who pointed out that it essentially blamed Eliza for her own assault by suggesting that her content creation constituted an implied consent to physical interaction. Legal experts debated whether the defense strategy represented a dangerous precedent or simply a desperate attempt to mitigate sentencing in a case with overwhelming evidence. For Eliza, sitting in the courtroom day after day as her digital footprint was dissected and her personal boundaries questioned was almost as traumatic as the assault itself. "There were moments I considered dropping the charges just to end the scrutiny," she later admitted. "But then I would think about all the creators who might face similar situations, and I knew I had to persist." The prosecution's case was bolstered by expert testimony from Dr. Leslie Zhang, a leading researcher in digital psychology. Dr. Zhang explained to the jury the concept of parasocial relationships, the one-sided connections audiences form with media figures, and how social media has intensified this phenomenon by creating an illusion of reciprocity and accessibility. "What we're seeing is an unprecedented blurring of the boundary between public performance and private existence," Dr. Zhang testified. "Platforms reward creators for perceived authenticity and vulnerability, essentially incentivizing them to share aspects of their lives that would have remained private in previous media paradigms. This creates a perfect storm for misinterpretation among audience members with certain psychological predispositions. Perhaps the most damning evidence came from Jordan's own online activity. The prosecution presented thousands of screenshots showing how Jordan had systematically archived, categorized, and analyzed Eliza's content, creating elaborate spreadsheets tracking her habits, preferences, and locations. They had joined every fan group, followed everyone Eliza followed, and even created multiple accounts to increase their chances of having comments noticed. In one particularly disturbing document titled "Connection Strategy," Jordan had outlined a multi-phase plan to progress from audience member to essential part of Eliza's life. The final phase, labeled "Physical Proximity Leading to Recognition," detailed the plan to create a situation where she sees my true value. When Jordan took the stand in their own defense, their testimony only reinforced the prosecution's case. Speaking with calm certainty, they expressed genuine confusion about why their actions were considered criminal. "I just wanted to show her how much she meant to me," Jordan testified. "I thought once we met in person, she would understand our connection. Everything I did was out of care for her. I never wanted to hurt her." The trial became a media sensation, with experts from various fields weighing in on the unique aspects of creator-fan dynamics in the digital age. Jordan's defense team attempted to minimize their client's culpability by pointing to the invitation that social media represents, an argument that was widely criticized as victim-blaming and ultimately rejected by the jury. After 2 weeks of testimony, including Eliza's powerful account of the assault and its aftermath, Jordan was convicted on all counts and sentenced to 15 years in prison with mandatory psychiatric treatment and a permanent restraining order prohibiting any contact with Eliza upon release. The verdict represented a significant legal milestone in how the justice system addresses crimes stemming from parasocial relationships. Legal experts cited it as a potential watershed moment in establishing that sharing content online does not constitute consent to any form of intrusion into a creator's physical life or space. For Eliza, the conclusion of the trial marked the beginning of a new chapter. 1 year after the assault, Digital Boundaries had grown to over 5 million subscribers. She had partnered with a major tech company to develop educational modules for schools about online safety. She had founded a nonprofit organization providing resources and support to creators experiencing stalking or harassment. And perhaps most significantly, she had reclaimed her story. What began as a tale of victimization had transformed into one of advocacy, resilience, and systemic change. The traumatic breach of her boundaries had ultimately led to stronger protections for countless others in similar positions. "I never wanted to be the face of this issue," Eliza said in a rare traditional media interview marking the anniversary of her attack. "But now that I am, I'm going to use this platform to ensure that what happened to me becomes increasingly rare, and that those who experience it have better resources than I did." She paused, then added with a hint of her old spark, "And yes, I still dance sometimes, just with better security now." Eliza's story represents a turning point in how we understand the unique vulnerabilities created by our digital landscape. In a world where perceived intimacy can be manufactured through carefully curated content, where boundaries between public and private blur with each post, and where accessibility is often conflated with availability, her experience serves as both a cautionary tale and a roadmap for change. For the millions of creators navigating this terrain, Eliza's journey offers important lessons about protection without isolation, authenticity without overexposure, and connection without exploitation. For platforms, it highlights the urgent need for better safeguards and clearer policies around harassment. And for audiences, it provides a crucial reminder that behind every piece of content is a real person deserving of basic respect and privacy. As our digital lives become increasingly intertwined with our physical existence, the conversation Eliza started continues to evolve. New platforms emerge, bringing new challenges and vulnerabilities. New generations of creators enter the space, often unaware of the potential risks until they experience them firsthand. But thanks to voices like Eliza's, these conversations are happening earlier, these risks are being addressed more proactively, and these boundaries are being established more firmly. In transforming her individual trauma into collective action, she created a legacy far more significant than any viral dance or sponsored post could have achieved. Today, Eliza continues her work, balancing advocacy with content creation and gradually reclaiming the joy that drew her to the platform initially. Her hair color changes monthly again, a small but significant act of personal reclamation. Her audience has evolved alongside her, with many original fans growing into active participants in the digital safety movement she helped catalyze. When asked if she regrets her career choice given what it ultimately cost her, Eliza's response is characteristically thoughtful. "Regret isn't a useful emotion in this context," she says. "Would I have made different choices if I had known then what I know now? Absolutely. But would I trade the platform I have now, the changes we're making together, the people we're helping? Never." She adds, "The internet didn't create obsession or violation. These existed long before TikTok. What digital platforms have done is create new vectors for these age-old problems. Our job isn't to abandon these spaces, but to make them safer, more transparent, and more accountable." Many psychologists studying the case point to this nuanced understanding as key to Eliza's resilience. Dr. Sofia Ramirez, a specialist in trauma recovery, notes, "What's remarkable about Eliza's journey is her ability to separate the platform from the pathology. Rather than developing an aversion to digital spaces, which would have been an understandable trauma response, she's developed a sophisticated framework for distinguishing between healthy and unhealthy engagement. This framework became the foundation for the educational content Eliza now creates. In a series of videos titled Digital Boundaries 101, she breaks down the warning signs of parasocial relationship escalation, the importance of intentional privacy practices, and the psychological impact of constant exposure. These videos have become standard viewing in many high school digital citizenship curricula across the country. Behind the scenes, Eliza's personal journey included significant challenges. For months after the attack, she experienced severe panic attacks whenever her doorbell rang. She developed a hypervigilance that made even simple activities like grocery shopping or coffee shop visits emotionally exhausting. She struggled with guilt over Mia's involvement. Her roommate had developed anxiety issues of her own after the incident and eventually moved back to her hometown, a casualty of trauma that Eliza found particularly difficult to reconcile. "There were days I couldn't get out of bed," Eliza admitted in a private journal entry later shared in her memoir. "Days when I questioned everything, my career choice, my judgment, my right to take up space online at all. The voice in my head kept saying that if I just disappeared from the internet, everyone would be safer, including me." What pulled her through this darkest period was a combination of intensive therapy, a small circle of trusted friends who understood both her trauma and her determination, and ultimately, the realization that disappearing would mean surrendering to fear. "Giving up my voice felt like letting Jordan win," she explained, "and I couldn't accept that outcome." Working with her therapist, Dr. Elena Kim, Eliza developed strategies for managing her anxiety and reclaiming her sense of agency. These included controlled exposure therapy to gradually rebuild her comfort with activities that had become triggering, mindfulness practices to ground herself during panic episodes, and narrative therapy to reframe her experience as one chapter in a longer story rather than its defining moment. Trauma fundamentally alters your relationship with control, Dr. Kim explains, with Eliza's permission, in a professional journal article about the case. For content creators like Eliza, whose careers are built on carefully curated self-presentation, this loss of control can be particularly devastating. Our work focused on distinguishing between what could be controlled, her privacy settings, her security measures, her content choices, and what couldn't, other people's interpretations, platform algorithms, the existence of obsessive individuals. This distinction became crucial to Eliza's recovery and to the philosophy that now guides her advocacy. Rather than promoting an illusion of perfect safety or embracing cynical withdrawal, she champions what she calls informed engagement, an approach that acknowledges the risks of digital participation while providing concrete tools to mitigate them. It's a perspective that acknowledges both the trauma of her experience and the opportunity it created for meaningful change, a balance that has come to define Eliza's approach to her platform and her advocacy. For the millions of young people who aspire to digital fame, Eliza's story serves as neither encouragement nor deterrent, but rather as an invitation to enter these spaces with open eyes and clear boundaries. Her consistent message emphasizes that connection need not come at the cost of safety, that influence need not require the sacrifice of privacy, and that success need not mean vulnerability to those who would exploit it. In the constantly evolving landscape of digital culture, where yesterday's platforms become tomorrow's cautionary tales, and new forms of connection emerge with dizzying speed, Eliza Chen stands as a voice of measured wisdom, not calling for retreat from digital spaces, but for their thoughtful reconstruction into environments where creativity can flourish without creating the conditions for harm. Her story reminds us that behind every username, every account, every carefully crafted persona is a human being navigating the same complex emotional terrain as the rest of us. And in that reminder lies perhaps the most important lesson of all, that the greatest protection against the darkness that can lurk in digital spaces is our collective commitment to seeing each other's humanity beyond the screen. As Eliza herself puts it in the closing line of each Digital Boundaries video, remember there's a person on both sides of this screen. Let's act accordingly. If you've been affected by any of the issues discussed in this video, resources for support can be found in the description below. And if you know someone who might benefit from Eliza's story, please consider sharing this video with them. The ripple effects of Eliza's case extended far beyond her personal journey. In the months following her return to the platform, several major social media companies announced significant policy changes regarding creator protection. TikTok implemented enhanced privacy controls that allowed creators to mask location data more effectively. Instagram developed an AI system to detect and flag potentially concerning patterns in comment behavior. YouTube expanded its creator safety team and established a dedicated hotline for influencers experiencing stalking or harassment. Law enforcement agencies across the country began developing specialized training for officers dealing with digital stalking cases. The FBI expanded its cyber division to include a unit specifically focused on crimes stemming from parasocial relationships. Universities added courses on digital ethics and boundary setting to their communications and media studies programs. For many in Eliza's generation, those who had grown up with social media as an intrinsic part of their identity formation, her story prompted a collective reassessment of what healthy engagement online really means. Conversations about digital boundaries became commonplace in schools, workplaces, and homes. Parents who had once worried primarily about screen time now engaged their children in nuanced discussions about parasocial relationships and online privacy. Even the language around digital fame began to shift. Terms like followers and fans were increasingly replaced with community and audience, subtle linguistic changes that nonetheless reflected a growing awareness of the power dynamics at play in these spaces. Of course, as with any cultural shift, there was resistance. Some creators complained that the new emphasis on boundaries made it harder to establish the authentic connections that had once been their pathway to success. Some platforms dragged their feet on implementing meaningful safety measures, citing concerns about user experience and engagement metrics. Some audience members bristled at being implicitly associated with dangerous behavior when they saw themselves as respectful supporters. But gradually, incrementally, the conversation Eliza had started began to create tangible change in the digital landscape. Not by eliminating the possibility of harm, no single case, no matter how high profile, could accomplish that. But by bringing that possibility into the light, making it discussable, addressable, preventable. 5 years after her assault, Eliza published a memoir titled Beyond the Screen: Reclaiming Humanity in a Digital Age. The book detailed her journey from college student to influencer to advocate, weaving personal narrative with research on digital psychology and practical advice for both creators and audiences. It became a bestseller and was adopted as required reading in numerous media studies programs. In the epilogue, Eliza reflected on the dual nature of digital platforms, their unprecedented power to connect and their equally unprecedented power to distort those connections. The same tools that allowed me to share my creativity with millions also enabled someone to develop a dangerous fixation on me, she wrote. But those same tools also connected me with a community of survivors, advocates, and changemakers who helped me transform my experience into something meaningful. Technology itself is neutral. It's the frameworks we build around it, the norms we establish within it, and the awareness we bring to it that determine whether it becomes a force for connection or isolation, for healing or harm. Today, the landscape Eliza navigates looks markedly different from the one she entered as a college freshman posting dance videos. The platforms have evolved, the safeguards have improved, and the discourse has matured. But the fundamental questions her story raised remain as relevant as ever. How do we maintain authentic connection without compromising personal safety? How do we share our lives without surrendering our privacy? How do we build meaningful relationships through screens without losing sight of the humanity on both sides? These are not questions with simple answers or final solutions. They are ongoing conversations that each new generation of digital citizens must engage with in their own way. What Eliza's story offers is not a definitive roadmap, but a starting point, a vivid illustration of both the perils and possibilities of our increasingly digital existence. I don't see myself as an expert or a savior, Eliza says in her rare public speaking engagements. I'm just someone who experienced firsthand the consequences of boundaries not yet established, norms not yet defined, protections not yet implemented. If sharing my story helps even one person avoid similar harm, or helps one platform develop better safeguards, then something meaningful has come from my experience. It's a modest assessment from someone whose impact has been anything but. In transforming her trauma into advocacy, Eliza Chen didn't just reclaim her own narrative. She helped rewrite the collective story of what it means to exist, connect, and create in the digital age. And in a landscape where change often feels impossibly slow, where profit frequently trumps protection, and where innovation regularly outpaces ethics, that contribution stands as a testament to the power of individual voices to shape our shared digital future. As we continue to navigate this complex terrain together, creators and audiences, platforms and regulators, individuals and communities, we would do well to remember the fundamental insight at the heart of Eliza's work, that no amount of technological sophistication can substitute for the basic recognition of each other's humanity, vulnerability, and inherent dignity. In a world increasingly mediated by screens and algorithms, it is this recognition that remains our strongest protection against the darker potentials of our digital existence. Thank you for watching this episode of Raven Reports. Remember to subscribe for more stories that explore the complex intersection of technology, humanity, and the shadows that sometimes fall between them. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and remember that the most powerful protection in our digital age is compassion tempered with caution.